Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Things Policy podcast. This is Avinash Shet, research analyst from the Takshashila Institution. And today I have with me my colleague Lokendra Sharma, who is also a research analyst at Takshashila Institution. Hello, Lokendra.
Hello, Avinash. Thanks for having me here.
So, in this episode, we are going to talk about something called three-stage nuclear plan. Now, India is opening up to the idea of SMR, small modular reactor, assisting India in its energy transition. But nuclear establishment in India have different dream altogether. A grand dream of having three-stage nuclear plan. So, Lokendra, we want to understand, what is this three-stage nuclear plan and what are these three stages?
Thanks, Avinash, for that question. As you rightly said, it is a grand dream. And this grand dream's ultimate objective is to utilize a resource which we have available in abundant quantity. About 5 lakh 18,000 tons, according to one estimate, extractable thorium is there in India, which is huge. We have one of the largest reserves in the world of thorium. But how do we utilize thorium? See, the thing with thorium is it is fertile, not fissile, meaning that the thorium isotope in question, thorium 232, which we are referring to, cannot be directly burned in a reactor like other nuclear fuels, like uranium 235, for instance, which people generally know about, right? The thing with thorium is it needs to go through a process of transmutation. It needs to become uranium 233, and that uranium 233 is fissile. But in order to get there, in order to ensure that thorium 232 to uranium 233 fuel cycle is sustainable, and we can do it in a larger scale, with economy of scale in mind and also profits in mind, just scale it up. We can't do it directly. We have to do it sequentially. With this understanding, India's nuclear establishment came up with this three-stage nuclear power program, where these three stages eventually lead to thorium utilization. But first, we start with natural uranium, right? Which we have very less, by the way. About 78,000 tons only, extractable in India, according to an estimate, and that too of not very good quality. So, what we do is, in first stage, we establish something called pressurized heavy water reactor, right? And we have multiple units of it, by the way. So, this particular reactor does not use enriched uranium. It uses natural uranium. So there's no need to enrich. There's no need to invest in those technologies, and that was one of the reasons India had PHWRs in the first stage. But another reason also was that the output, one of the outputs from the spent fuel of the first stage is plutonium 239,
Okay.
and I'll get to that in a minute. So, in this PHWR, we use something called heavy water, D2O, as opposed to normal water, which is S2O, as coolant and as a moderator. And that is what gives it this distinct name, also PHWR, right? Pressurized heavy water reactor. And pressurized because, the heavy water in this particular reactor is under enormous pressure, right? And there's a whole technical basis to it, but we won't venture that deep into that. So, what happens in a PSWR is in the reactor core, we put natural uranium as fuel. And again, natural uranium has about 99%, uranium 238, which is again fertile but not fissile. But we do have 0.7% around, which is very small, but still significant enough, uranium 235. And uranium 235 is fissile. So In this reactor, when we initiate a chain reaction, when there are enough neutrons flying around to make the chain reaction sustainable, when the reactor has attained criticality, at that point what happens is, uranium 235, whatever is present, that burns. The nuclear fission happens, enormous amount of energy is released, and the heavy water which is acting as a uh, coolant also, that captures the energy. We have certain heat exchangers which then convert that heat energy, like transfer that heat energy to another loop of water, and then it eventually goes to the turbine generator, and then we get electricity. So there's a long, so these plants are huge, right? uh, with all the systems in place. And what happens to uranium 238, which is abundantly available in this fuel, which we load in this reactor, is that it transmutes into plutonium 239, which can be obtained when we retrieve the spent fuel and process it. Right. So that's one of the products. And this plutonium 239 has been useful for India's strategic military sort of nuclear program. So this was one of the reasons why we chose PSWRs, because it serves both our needs, right? We don't necessarily need to have high end enrichment technologies, which are very difficult to master, right? You need all kinds of centrifuges and you need to calibrate them in a particular manner. At the same time, you get plutonium 239, which you can use to build bombs.
Okay.
So this is the first stage. What happens is, the output of first stage, as I said, is plutonium 239 and depleted uranium. That is uranium which has more of uranium 238 and less of uranium 235, because again uranium 235 was burned
Correct.
in the reactor, right? So that's depleted.
First stage, the input fuel is uranium
Natural uranium.
235,
No, natural uranium.
natural uranium, and
Uranium.
output is
Output is
u-
plutonium 239
and
and depleted uranium with very less of uranium 235, because that was burned.
correct.
Now what we do is, once we have set up a number of PSWRs, and we have sufficient stockpiles of plutonium 239 and depleted uranium, then we initiate something called the second stage.
Okay.
And second stage involves the setting up of what we call as fast breeder reactors.
Mm-hmm.
We call these as fast because neutrons in this particular reactor move in the fast energy spectrum. And these are breeder reactors because these reactors are special, they're magical almost.
Okay.
Avinash, can you imagine having a power generator, or a power plant that is actually producing more fuel than it is consuming, right?
Oh,
So this is the
crazy.
magic. Yeah, this is the
Okay.
magic of a fast breeder reactor, that it can actually, uh, you know, give you more fuel than it actually consumed.
Okay.
And we use a certain term called doubling time for these reactors. That is, how much time does it take for a fast breeder reactor to produce enough fuel to, have another in place?
Okay.
So how much time does it take to double the existing fleet? So that is the quantum of fuel we are talking about. How does
Mm-hmm.
this happen? This happens because what we do is, in the second stage, we use plutonium 239
Hmm.
and depleted uranium
Okay.
from the first stage as fuel.
Yeah. Okay.
And what this does is, when the plutonium 239 burns, right? And since we have a lot of depleted uranium also present, it actually transmutes plutonium 239, like uranium 238, into plutonium 239 again.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
a really nice fuel cycle here,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wherein we are keep on producing plutonium 239 in the reactor itself,
Okay.
and we are
Okay.
burning it there also, right? So we get a lot of energy from this, and we get a lot of near fuel
Fuel
from
as
this,
well.
because
Okay.
abundantly uranium 238 we can transmute and make it into
Okay.
plutonium 239. But at certain point of this particular stage, what we do is we introduce a layer of thorium in it.
Okay.
And why we do is because, for the three stage to materialize, we need uranium 233. And
Okay.
uranium 233 we can obtain by, again, making thorium 232 undergo transmutation.
Okay. Okay.
And that happens when we introduce this blanket of thorium 232 in this reactor. It undergoes transmutation and we get uranium 233. So we recover
Okay.
that from the spent fuel,
Uh-huh.
process it, right? And then once we have enough of fast breeder reactors and once we have enough of stockpile of uranium 233, then we initiate something called the third stage, in which we build thermal breeder reactors. And this stage involves a fuel cycle, a fuel element of uranium 233
Okay.
with thorium 232. So it's a self-sustaining fuel cycle basically,
Mm-hmm.
because we have abundant amount of thorium. You can just
Okay.
keep on using thorium 232 and uranium 233, because once you transmute thorium 232 in the reactor with the help of uranium 233,
Uh,
you get again uranium 233.
correct.
So it's a
Correct. Correct.
self-sustaining fuel cycle. You just keep on inserting more and more thorium, you get more and more energy. That is the magic of the third stage, right? So just to give you an idea, what kind of energy we are talking about. The energy potential of first stage, if fully realized, which just uses natural uranium,
Mm-hmm.
is 420 gigawatt years of electrical energy. When we go to second stage, that is 54,000 gigawatt years of electrical energy, which is huge. But hold on till you hear the third stage. If we were to use our thorium resources properly, optimize the usage, right? The potential is 358,000 gigawatt years of electricity, which
Mm-hmm.
Avinash, is sufficient to power India with its rising energy needs for this century and even beyond.
That's
That is the
great.
that is
Yeah.
the level of energy we are looking at. Right? That is the potential. That is why the nuclear establishment dreams has this grand dream of using thorium.
Oh,
And we, as I said earlier, we have 518,000 tons, one of the largest reserves in the world for extractable thorium in the world.
that's like if we are able to achieve it, it's like one of the renewable power source, or I would say non carbon emitting power source, right? And it's like it will also help a lot in our sustainable goals, like
Yeah.
in a very profound way.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are able to just have zero carbon emission from our
So, while we can say
generation.
that, unlike coal and other fossil fuel based sources, this doesn't directly produce carbon emissions that way. But yeah, there are certain issues with nuclear waste and life cycle emissions that definitely nuclear industry has, which we'll again discuss maybe at a later stage.
Yeah. So I understand that the whole need for this plan was because we have thorium reserves,
Yeah.
at a very, I
Yeah.
mean, abundantly we have thorium. And we don't need, the specialized uranium, the enriched uranium for this, which we don't have technology to
Yeah.
enrich, right?
No,
And
we have
we have,
the, I mean, it's not right to categorize it that way.
okay.
Uh, no, please continue your question. Yeah.
So, what are other benefits or, which India foresee? Is it this, or do you want to add anything onto it?
Yeah. So let me put it this way. When the nuclear establishment saw this dream, at that point of time, we did not necessarily have the technological might to
Mm-hmm.
do enrichment, right?
Okay.
And what is the time period we are talking about? We are talking about right around independence, right? We are talking about
Okay.
1940s. At that point of time, definitely India did not, the enrichment technology was with very few, right? It was the P5,
Correct.
yeah, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and going forward. And initially, it was just, I think, with the United States and Soviets. So, the reason we imagined this program in the way we have was motivated by multiple factors.
Okay.
First was India, as a post colonial state, had this dream of energy sufficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also wanted to have some great technological miracles, right? And in addition to that, these were the times of Cold War, and
Okay.
India's
Mm-hmm.
geopolitical situation and India's interest demanded of India to develop at that point of time to consider developing nuclear weapons also, for
Correct.
which it
Correct.
needed plutonium 239, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those were some of the factors. So in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that is when India understood that it has technological limitations. It is a fresh, newly independent state. It wants energy sufficiency, and it also wants to, potentially build a bomb. All these factors motivated India to have the three-stage plan program in the way it has.
Okay.
And in fact, the roots of India's three-stage plan, or rather, I would say nuclear program,
Mm-hmm.
are pre-independence,
That's
right? So
yeah.
in 1945, Avinash,
Okay.
Tata Institute of Fundamental Research was established, TIFR, right? And so that is pre-independence. And Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, as we know, has played a seminal role in India's nuclear journey. And right after independence in 1948, the Atomic Energy Act was passed.
Mm-hmm.
An Atomic Energy Commission was established. One person who was instrumental in India's nuclear dream, at least for 2, 3 decades initially, right, was Homi Bhabha.
Yeah.
And under his leadership, under the leadership of Homi Bhabha, the institutional and organizational structure of the nuclear establishment took shape in late 40s and 50s. And uh, in 90 and Department of Atomic Energy was established soon enough. And then Atomic Energy Establishment Trombe, AEET, came up in 1954. And remember this, AEET, after Baba's death, it
Mm-hmm.
became BAC, as we
Correct.
know
Oh,
it, right?
yes, yes,
Baba
yes.
Atomic Research Center,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that is the history part of it. And but when was three-stage uh, program first, formulated or pushed by Baba? It was in 1954 when
Okay.
Baba made a presentation on the same, like presented this three-stage plan in a conference on the development of atomic energy for peaceful purposes, which was attended by the then Prime Minister Nehru as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this three-stage plan was formally adopted by the government of India in 1958. So it's been 60 years since
Okay.
this plan was first put forth. That is the history of this
Okay.
program.
So. That's quite a long time, right? So where are we? I mean, what's the current status of the plan? I think we have long way. I mean, can you
Yeah,
give us an insight on that?
sure. So on the one side, we have a grand dream, right? On
Correct.
the other side, we have unfulfilled potential, unfulfilled dreams, right?
Okay.
So uh, it's sad, but yeah, we have only, really mastered the first stage so far.
Okay. Okay.
India has not done adequately so far on the second and third stage.
Okay.
With when it comes to the PHWRs, which we spoke about in the
Mm-hmm.
first stage, India can now develop and deploy PHWRs anytime it
Mm-hmm.
wants to, because that technology it has completely indigenized, and it has mastered the art of it. And that reflects in the number of PHWR reactors we have. So in total, we have 24 nuclear operational nuclear power plants. And out of this, we have 20 PHWRs.
Okay.
But we also have other kinds of reactors, which I won't go deep technically into, but they are different from PHWR in how they function, right? So we have two boiling water reactors, which were given to us by the Americans.
Okay.
And we also have two VVERs, which were given to us by Russians.
Okay.
And BWRs are very old. I think the BWR maybe 40, 50,
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, quite old. But the VVRs are very recent. They became operational very like in the last decade or so. The boiling water reactors, on the other hand, became operational, I think, in the late 1960s.
Okay,
So
okay.
those are very old. Yeah.
So these technologies from the other countries like Russia, right? I mean, these others, boiling water and
Yes.
the VERs.
Yes.
So these are very different than the first stage of, or it's not,
Yeah, they are not. They are not. So PSW are
is the
part of
first stage,
first stage.
correct?
BWRs again we got it in late 1960s. So Americans gave us to help assist us with the nuclear program. And remember, at that point we had not tested the nuclear weapons,
Mm-hmm.
which we did in 1970s,
Ah,
70s. Yeah,
correct,
I
correct.
think 74. We
Yes.
tested the first
Smiling.
time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now the total capacity of in a nuclear power in India is around 8,080 megawatt electric,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
In PSWR, we are mastered, first stage masters. In second stage, we have one prototype fast breeder reactor
Okay.
under construction in Kalpakkam.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 500 megawatt reactor.
Okay.
So, Atomic Energy Regulatory Board approved it in July 2024, but it is yet to achieve criticality and it has been under construction for a lot of years,
Okay.
lot of delays with it. So once we have the PFBR attaining criticality and working fine, maybe we'll see more development on the fast breeder reactor second stage front
Okay.
going forward. The third stage, as we speak, currently largely
Mm-hmm.
remains in the R&D stage. So the nuclear establishment is cognizant of the fact that it has taken this long, and but so they're also experimenting with other designs,
Okay.
which bridges the time it takes to use thorium. And
Mm-hmm.
one of this design is called advanced heavy water reactor,
Okay.
right? But we have to see more of it, what they develop on this front going forward.
Okay.
So that is the current status as it looks like.
Interesting. I mean, so we have stage one where we have mastered. Stage two, we are trying it out with a prototype coming in, and stage three, we are still doing extensive R&D.
Yes.
Right. Yes, that's great. I mean, so I think you anyway mentioned, in what way we are going to benefit out of it, right? I mean, what is the range of electricity we are getting out of it? Uh, so this being nuclear, so I am assuming there has to be some kind of, I mean, challenges, right? I mean,
Yeah.
for example, we hear a lot about waste, how are we going to take care of it, right? I mean, so where are we in those? I mean, what are, first of all, I mean, that's very generic, one challenge I know,
Yeah.
but what are the other challenges and how, we are planning to tackle it, or is it even at a space where we are thinking about tackling it? What are your views on these?
So before I move into the challenges, just one more additional point I'll emphasize in the benefits part.
Huh?
According to the World Nuclear Association, and I'm quoting for them, quote,
Okay.
nuclear energy's 30 tons CO2 per gigawatt hour emission intensity at 7% of the emission intensity of natural gas and only 3% of the emission intensity of coal fired power plants,
Hmm.
unquote, right?
Yeah.
So, and this, I'll make another quote. So, from the World Nuclear Association again, quote, in addition, the life cycle GHG emission intensity of nuclear power generation is consistent with renewable energy sources, including biomass, hydroelectric, and wind, unquote. So, as this particular two quotes show, that the emissions we are getting out of nuclear are very less. And even when we look at life cycle emissions, they're comparable to renewable sources.
Correct.
So that is one benefit. But this whole benefit is colored and questioned by nuclear waste, which
Hmm.
is very difficult. It's a very vexed problem, actually, to which even after it's been so nuclear development started 19 late 1930s and early
Correct.
1940s, right, with the Manhattan Project and
Yes.
everything,
Yes.
World War II, and so on. So it's been about 870 plus years, right? So even after, no, 80 around, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. It's 70, 80,
Yeah,
yes.
around 80 years, right? So it's been 8 decades, and 8 decades is a long, long time.
Correct.
Even after 8 decades of technological developments, nuclear establishment in India and even nuclear establishments in other countries, the whole nuclear lobby globally,
Mm-hmm.
all nuclear associations, everything, right? The entire nuclear industry, they have still not figured out what to do with highly radioactive waste because it's very
Okay.
difficult.
Okay.
And that is one of the vexed challenges. So I say that there is this pentangle challenge, right?
Okay.
Because there are 5 challenges. You
Okay.
plot them out, you can say, oh, it's a pentangle, right? So uh, and these 5 are waste, cost, delays, proliferation concerns, and strategic stability, right?
Okay.
These challenges are for India specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about waste, we have to understand something about India's nuclear waste, right? So Indian nuclear establishment categorizes it as low, intermediate, and high level. And maximum waste that we generate
Okay.
is not high level. It's actually low and intermediate.
Okay. Okay.
But at the same time, the most radioactivity, about 99%, right, is in
Mm-hmm.
the high level waste. Even though less in quantity, it is more
But
difficult to deal
okay.
with.
Okay.
And so the Indian nuclear establishment actually has a plan, and it is also 3 stage to deal with the nuclear
Okay.
waste. So in the first step, what they do is they convert the waste to I'm talking about the high level waste here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they convert it into vitrified borosilicate glasses,
Okay.
right? And there's a whole lot of process of vitrification and so on. Let's not go too technical into it, but it is then in the second stage stored in specially engineered facilities. And so the third ultimate stage that the nuclear establishment thinks of storing nuclear waste is in deep geological repositories.
Okay.
And these are specific geological sites which are stable, which have a lot of geological features, making them suitable for storing nuclear waste for thousands of years. Because the high level radioactive waste you are talking about
Mm-hmm.
has half life of thousands of years. So it's going to last
Correct.
very, very long, right? It's going to outlast all of us. A lot
Okay.
of thousands of generations, right? We're talking about here. So that means we need very safe sites
Yeah.
with very less chance of any mishap happening. Because if mishap happens and you have radioactivity spilling over and causing damaging health outcomes to communities nearby, that is very, very scary. That is very, very
Yeah.
huge, right? So India does not have any deep geological repository yet.
Okay.
In fact, there is not a single one in the world
Okay.
for high level waste.
Okay. So.
In the US,
Uh-huh.
they have a deep geological repository, but that doesn't store high level waste. And they
Okay.
also had an accident there.
Okay.
And in that accident, I mean, it is considered as one of the costliest accidents in the history of United States because see, nuclear accidents are very messy. It takes
Yeah.
enormous amounts of money to clean up the mess. You need special equipments, you need all kind of special gear, you need to do a lot of things, as we saw what happened with Fukushima also, right?
Mm-hmm.
It takes
Correct.
billions and billions of dollars to
Correct.
take care
Yes.
of high like nuclear accidents, right? So it's a costly affair. There are some countries, I think Sweden
Mm-hmm.
and Finland, they are planning to have deep geological repositories. I think they are in different phases of construction approvals and so on. But and the communities around the sites where these are planned are somehow okay with it, it seems so.
Okay.
But let's see whether they're able to construct, whether they're able to store nuclear waste here safely. Critics are skeptical.
Mm.
Critics have raised all kinds of doubts how good, scientifically speaking, these deep geological repositories are and what are the
Correct.
risks. So let's see how this goes forward. But for India, we don't even have, right, anything
Yeah.
moving in that direction right now. We don't have a deep geological repository, so India will need to figure this out.
Uh,
Another concern is the delays, man.
Hmm.
The VVRs that came up recently, like
Okay. The Russian.
some
Yeah.
years back, right?
Uh-huh.
The agreement for it, I think, was signed in late 1990s with Russians.
Okay.
It took almost 15-20 years for them to materialize. That is
Okay.
just one example of how long it takes for nuclear reactors to come up. It takes years. And invariably, there is a cost overrun running into billion, right?
Hmm.
It's a very, and cost is again a challenge, right? It's a
Correct.
hugely costly affair. You're looking at uh, billions of dollars. I mean, almost a couple $1 billion for a proper normal reactor unit, not the whole plant, right? So it's a costly affair. You need a lot of money. Waste is there. The fourth challenge, which is an interesting one, is proliferation concerns. See, if India wants to go big on thorium,
Hmm.
one thing which would have worked in its favor and would have, even helped India market thorium in international markets, like push it in the international markets, is the fact, not fact, is the idea that thorium uranium fuel cycle is proliferation resistant.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
And this happens because of, you know, the high energy gamma rays that are
Hmm.
present in
Okay.
the spent fuel, right? Which makes proliferation very difficult. So, this is what even IAEA, which is
Hmm.
International Atomic Energy Agency, and others in the past, like I think decade or before that, they've
Okay.
argued in studies, right? So, and this the high energy gamma rays that I just said, right?
Hmm.
That is because of the presence of uranium 232 in this fuel cycle, which emits this high energy gamma rays. Now, recent research that I have come across has questioned this very idea of proliferation resistant by design. They say that a determined actor, powerful actor, determined
Okay.
actor, can still subvert all checks and balances, all
Uh,
proliferation resistant things, and somehow divert the fuel to build a bomb. That is possible. It's not as if this thing is proliferation resistant, so it's not possible.
correct. Correct. Correct.
So that means India will have to figure out this challenge of you know proliferation concerns
Correct.
if it wants to go big on thorium in the sense that help other countries
Yes. Yes.
utilize this technology.
Correct.
Then the fifth and final challenge is strategic stability in South Asia. Now, the not just in like South Asia but Asia, right? So, um, or as we call it, the Indian subcontinent. I think that is a better. Apologies for that. I think Indian subcontinent. I think is a
Hmm.
better way to describe this region. But we are also talking about China here, right?
Okay.
So I'm referring to this region of India, Pakistan, and
Correct.
China. And these three are nuclear powers. All three have different nuclear postures, when to use nuclear weapons, when to not. But there is a sense of stability in the sense that all three have are widely expected to behave in a certain way, have a certain arsenal, and so on,
Correct.
certain technology. If India masters the three-stage nuclear power program, let's say, then it disrupts the normal, right? It creates a new
Hmm.
normal, and the
Yeah.
technological know-how that India gets out of this can be diverted to possibly
Okay.
the military strategic program. But
Hmm.
also,
Hmm.
when we start using thorium properly, and at that time, our domestic uranium resources, which are very less,
Correct.
can be freed up from the civil nuclear power plants and can be diverted potentially to the military strategic program.
Hmm.
And this is certainly going to ruffle feathers in Pakistan and China. So, if this three-stage nuclear power program materializes, it is possible that we may see certain counter actions by, you know, certain actions, set of actions that China and Pakistan will take to adjust to this new reality. So,
Correct.
this will
Correct.
impact the strategic stability in the Indian subcontinent, right? So, that
Okay.
is another. Yeah, I think those
Yeah.
are
I
the
think you
five
covered all
challenges.
five. Yes.
Yes, yes.
So, oh, that's interesting. I mean, now that uh, if you really see, where we are, in this three-stage nuclear plan, uh, where do you see? I mean, it's been 6 decades, 7 decades,
6 decades. Yeah.
6 decades for us that we have planned, started it, and we have successfully mastered stage one, and we are, trying out with stage two. So, how do you think we have to move forward with this? I mean, do you think it will take next 50 to 60 years, or I mean, again, it's a all, but what is your prediction? Or I mean, we totally understand that the nature of the science we are dealing with, right? I mean, we're dealing with the atomic forces. So what is your view onto it? What's the way forward?
I agree with you, Avinash, that it has been 6 decades. In fact, we are in 2024, right?
Correct.
It's and it was floated. The idea was originally floated by Homi Baba in
Yes.
1954. So we are in
Correct.
the 60th year that way. Um, so yeah, 6 decades done, but we are still moving to second stage with the
Yes.
prototype fast breeder reactors. So definitely we have not done a lot.
Mm.
If you ask me, can I give a prediction of how long will it take for us to master this entire thing? I would say I don't know.
Okay.
Uh, if PFBR is a success, second stage one, if we rapidly build PFBR, climate change becomes a heavy, even more pressing concern,
Ha ha
right? We have
ha.
more extreme weather events. If India decides to do more on the climate front, energy transition front, more investment flowing into nuclear, possibly we may move faster towards this.
Correct.
But I can only give a vague answer that it will still take decades for
Yeah.
us to materialize this. Then the point is, I think after 6 decades, it is right time now
Mm-hmm.
for India's nuclear establishment to really reflect, because I think it had sufficient time to prove that this program was viable.
Hmm.
And it was not just a catchy phrase that was used to get more and more funds,
Mm-hmm.
because nuclear establishment has taken a lot of funds, right? So if it doesn't want to abandon the three-stage nuclear power program and go with newer ideas, right, small modular reactors, right,
Okay.
then nuclear establishments need to really reflect, sit down, and chart out a realistic path
Mm-hmm.
towards the realization of this plan, and also maybe open up the space for private sector in this,
Interesting. Yeah.
and be more transparent about the
Correct.
funds involved in this program. And second thing I would like to say is that India needs to figure out what it will do with two things: nuclear waste, but also civil nuclear liability. And that's also a very
Mm.
vexed problem.
Yes.
If it can figure out both of these things before going big on nuclear, very good.
Correct.
The third thing is, and this is again something that we have to watch for, whether or not thorium uranium fuel cycle is proliferation resistant. I think that will decide the future of international trade
Yeah.
in breeder reactors, in thermal breeder reactors involving thorium, right?
Correct.
So those are my larger points.
That's nice. I mean, now that we have gone through every part of, at a very upper level, every part of this three-stage nuclear plan, we can foresee what benefit we can get in terms of energy and energy, in terms of self-sufficiency, not only self-sufficiency, but how sustainable, not only self-sufficient energy, but sustainable
And
energy,
also
right?
how it helps in energy transition, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then on the one hand, we can see what it can provide us, but on the other hand, we can see
The
the
challenges on the way.
yes,
Big challenges on the way.
correct. So I think yes, I mean we have a hill to climb, and we
Yes.
have been climbing it for quite some time.
Yes.
And I hope that you know things aligns, various even few suggestions you gave in
Yeah.
terms of including private players
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
transparent.
Yes.
Lot of different things happens, and we get to
Yeah. But
ha-
let's not have very high hopes. Let's wait and watch
yes,
what unfolds in
yeah,
coming years and decades going forward.
That's great.
Let's watch.
It's really nice to have you here and understand this three-stage nuclear plan. And I really thank you for giving me and our audiences this information so that we know what we are looking into. And thanks a lot.
Thanks, Avinash, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone who is listening.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.